Every idea needs its champion, and this goes for pieces of legislation as well. In the legislative process, a bill's champion is called the prime sponsor. We sat down with Senator Claire Wilson and lobbyist Aiden Espino to dig into the significance of bill sponsorship.
You know, a prime sponsor is somebody who cares deeply about an issue, and people come to you and say, I have a problem that needs to be solved, or I have an idea that I'd like to share with you, or I've got something that's worked somewhere else and I think we need to do it as a state law. And if you're interested in the ideas and what they're putting forth, then you might be the one that sponsors a bill, and that means that you actually see it through the process of turning it into a bill from a draft and making sure that it is heard in committee and that it's exec'd out. You testify on the bill. You work with advocates and make sure that as the bill moves through the process, changes are made so that we can reach agreement. And then at the very end, when your bill gets through, you are the one that stands with advocates next to the governor as he's signing your bill into law.
What a sponsor can fundamentally bring you is credibility onto the issue. And that's both your prime sponsor and your number two sponsor. You know, both of those are very important. There's a term they call juice. So you can introduce a bill with a lot of juice if you have a sponsor that sort of is assumed or considered either an expert, a leading or leader on the policy. You know, maybe a sponsor, one legislator would be a horrible sponsor for a housing policy, but they're the go-to person for, let's say, agriculture issues.
Everybody has kind of an area of expertise and an area that they know very deeply, and that's the best way, I think, to move things forward, because you're coming from a place of knowledge, and also you've got some history about where things have been. So to me, juice is kind of what's the electricity that keeps a bill going. And part of that juice, I think, is the person that sponsors the bill and primes the bill. The juice always also comes from the advocates and individuals who come and tell their stories, and that kind of brings the bill alive. That also causes juice and causes things to move through the system.
What takes time is stakeholdering, and that is part of the art of the political process and lobbying and navigating the legislative process.
To tell you the truth, bills are pretty much almost ready and almost done by the time session starts. So we have a time period called interim, and that's between when one session ends and the next session begins. And that's really where the work takes place, where you're meeting with stakeholders and advocates and groups, and they bring forth their ideas and their priorities, and you start bringing people together, and you actually start putting words on papers and ideas on paper, and that's what actually turns into the bills during session.
It is fundamentally consensus driven. So if you are someone who has an idea, most legislators, because they've done this before, and this is sort of the culture now, they'll say who's against it, who's for it. They want to get that lay of the land. It's important to think about these things beforehand, and the success of your bill will almost always determine how you manage the interplay between stakeholders.
What I think people don't really know is the majority of bills that actually cross the governor's desk are bipartisan. Members have 24 hours after a bill is dropped where they sit in their computers every night, if they're like me, and they read all the bills that have dropped that day, and then can sign on as a co-sponsor. And a co-sponsor would be anybody whose name is after the first person on the bill. So the first name on the bill will be the prime sponsor, but anybody else that signs on is showing that they're in support and that they too agree with the content of the bill.
There's two distinct caucuses, Republicans and Democrats. And different caucuses have different thoughts, ideologies, perspectives, approaches to various issues. So I say this to mean if you get a bill with only Democrat support or you get a bill with only Republican support, that's a signal to the various caucuses, right? This is why they like bipartisan bills, because it sort of helps alleviate the sort of, oh, you're only getting one side or the other. It sort of broadens the amount of votes that you could potentially perceive, just inherently, right?
As a bill sponsor, If I'm on the committee that I'm presenting on, then I can see that bill all the way through because I'm in the executive meeting as well as being able to speak to any questions members might have. If a bill is being heard in a committee where I don't sit, then I have to trust the members on that committee and work with them to make sure that as people maybe want to change or amend the bill, that I'm still feeling like the intent of the bill is that which I set it out to be.
There are plenty of instances where bills die because the original proponents of the bill say, well, this got changed so much, I don't even care about it anymore. This isn't even what I want. This isn't what I was trying to achieve.
And oftentimes, again, our goal is to find a balance and to get all sides to sign on a bill. But there are times when I say you go big or go home, and that a bill is so important and that it may have such an impact on individuals or on a population that regardless of whether someone signs on that believes differently than you or not, the bill is so important, and then it becomes a debate and it becomes a conversation in caucus for us to understand kind of where people are at and then whether the bill will be able to move forward or not.